Hey, we all at some point feel like we've got a hurricane just raging within us sometimes, and sometimes we even feel maybe captivated or captive, in that the eye of that storm and whatever challenges of life we're in. Today's guest has faced many battles, many storms, literally, but battles within herself, really, and faced some tragedy and faced some trauma in her life, and overcome those things. And in fact, she is the author of a book called The Hurricane Within, which we will talk about. But I want to introduce you to Ashlee Leppert, who spent 14 years of active duty in the United States Coast Guard, became a qualified flight mechanic and flight mechanic instructor. She received, this is pretty cool, really cool. She received the Air Medal for her heroic efforts during Hurricane Harvey. So she was with us right here in our great city of Houston, Texas, back in 2017, and did some amazing work during Hurricane Harvey. But hey, we're going to brag on her for a second because she was honored as the guest of President Trump's first State of the Union address. And I watched that, and I remember and getting a standing ovation. And there's a picture in her book, and just watch. I just get chills like thinking about just some of the honor that was involved and just how big that moment could have been. But formally, I would like to welcome Ashlee Leppert to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, John. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're now in the great state of Florida. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Loving the Emerald Coast over here.
Oh man, I love it over there, Destin, Florida. You wrote this book. I read the book, and just kind of on the edge of my seat through like 3/4 of it. So I don't really appreciate that. Like I don't appreciate you making me go through this moment of, okay, what's happening next? Okay, I got to read the next chapter. Okay, I'll be done after this chapter. So yeah, thanks a lot for that. But but maybe just kind of talk about that journey, because I want to dig into some maybe deeper, heavier topics here in a minute. But just
Sure.
talk about why you wrote that book and just kind of some of the cool stuff you encountered along that journey.
Absolutely. So, for me, when I got back from all the hurricane rescues, I was dealing with PTSD and not really realizing that that's what I was going through. There were some situations throughout my life, as you read in my story,
Mm-hmm.
that I really didn't deal with. I sort of compartmentalized a lot of those traumatic events. And so, when I got home from the hurricane stuff, I thought, what better way than to do some therapy by myself is just I got on my laptop and I just started typing, and I wasn't ready to talk to a person necessarily about some
Yeah.
things going on in my life, but that was the first step. And I had a really amazing friend. Her name is Katie. She actually just graduated from Naval Flight School. She's an awesome friend, and she
Yeah.
really helped me fine tune my story and my words. And she said, Ashlee, you're going to inspire people with this. And of
Mm.
course, I was completely terrified to put my personal life on a public scale like that through a book. But the wonderful feedback that I've gotten from, being able to help people and inspire people is, it kind of makes all that fear sort of dissipate really quick.
Right, right. I mean, I know. I mean, coming from a fellow writer, I get it. Sometimes things are just better on paper, and so I wanted to. I was curious. So tell the audience, just for those that don't know, what was your role as in the Coast Guard, and on those sort of the rescue missions that you went on? Like, what is the role of the flight mechanic, the flight mechanic, and I guess that was your title, your formal title.
Sure. Yeah. So the Coast Guard is sort of a different service as in terms of we fix the aircraft we fly on. A lot of other branches, they have contractors or other people that fix and maintain the aircraft components. But my personal job was an avionics electrical technician, which means anything navigations, communications, I was in charge of maintaining, troubleshooting, inspecting, all of that. However, whenever we were on call for a 24-hour shift, we had a position of a flight mechanic. So you have your
Mhm.
pilot, your co-pilot, your flight mechanic, and your rescue swimmer. So I was the flight mechanic, which means during a flight phase, I'm in charge of radio calls, keeping the pilots in a correct hovering position whenever we, retrieve, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
retrieve somebody from the water or whatever platform we're helping somebody, saving their life from, basically. So
Right.
it's kind of the middleman of the whole flying evolution, truthfully. So that was my job. I did that, and then eventually became a flight mechanic instructor, which is the point where I got to train other people to go out and
Mm.
save lives, which was honestly my most, fruitful and favorite part about my job.
Yeah, I mean, reading the book, it's crazy to think. I mean, just some of the experiences you went through, but starting kind of at the beginning a little bit, and not to go completely, in the weeds on it, um, because I don't know how comfortable you are sharing, but obviously you battled some sexual assault in your teenage years. Um, you were in a home where there was some addiction. Um, then later in your life, discovering you've got an immune deficiency and a neuromuscular disease. So you had every opportunity to bug out on life, on family, on job. What kind of kept you going, as we talk about your teenage years and early adulthood? Like, what kind of kept you going throughout some of these setbacks?
Well, to be honest with you, everybody can relate. My personal testimony is very much similar to a lot of people in the world. We all deal with things, whether it be in our personal life or professional life. And for me personally, my foundation of my faith as a Christian, truthfully, has saved me from the ledge many a times. Just knowing that I had the creator of the earth on my side. I mean, that's such a powerful thing. And to actually see him working, not only knowing that statement, but to actually watch God work in my life. And so the second part of that is, I'm sure a lot of military and first responders will agree, but you asked me to go save somebody else, I'm there. I'm on it. I'm running to help somebody else. But to save yourself and to help yourself is quite a struggle and a challenge. So I found that my biggest outlet and my best therapy in helping myself was ultimately helping other people. And that became a way of me just to, help my community. And it also, in turn, it actually helped me be able to connect with people that have also been through the same struggles. And knowing that, hey, we're all in this together. There's storms of life, no matter who you are or where you live. And if we can all find that common denominator, we can really help each other out in the world.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree with that. So you started out in the Detroit area, am I right? For when you in your career with the Coast Guard, and then
Yes, sir.
moved to New Orleans. Um, uh, so talk about, and then this is kind of where the story got interesting, right? I mean, you started noticing some things about your body, right? Just that performance issues and just things like CrossFit wasn't quite one day, just wasn't working out. Talk about some of the, and it's confusing for you, I'm assuming, but just the craziness of medical community being so unsure. Like, we think they know everything. Let's be honest, there's a lot of stuff they don't know, and I give them a little grace because it's the human body, can't know everything. But talk about some of your challenges with that down in New Orleans when you first discovered this disease.
Sure. So, I mean, for me and anybody out there that has struggled with trying to diagnose an autoimmune condition, they know how hard that can be. Because one day you could be feeling great, and then the next day, it's hard for you to chew your own food. I mean, it was such a weird thing for me. And the hardest part for me was I had just transferred from Detroit down to New Orleans. So that's a very highly stressful time. You're picking up your entire life and you're starting new. And so, for me, it was very easy to chalk everything up to stress. Oh, I'm just tired because of stress. Or, oh, my muscles are feeling extra fatigued because of stress. And then, I was doing a lot of trying to self-diagnose, changing my diet, adding supplements in there, doing different workouts. And, some of it helped and others didn't. And it wasn't until I was actually flying on the hurricanes and I felt a stress and a little of terror that I've never felt before, and that, you know, your body reacts to that. So when I came home from all of that, that's when I realized, okay, I need to actually go to a doctor and start the whole trying to figure this out thing. So it was scary, but you know, I'm just thankful that I had a diagnosis and I wasn't crazy. You know, you start to feel crazy after a while, like, what's wrong with me? So I'm just thankful that I felt a relief upon my diagnosis.
And especially when you're not getting confirmation from professionals who are supposed to know what they're talking about and know what's wrong with you, right? You want answers. And so nobody's
Yes.
confirming what you really knew deep down in you, that something wasn't right. We know our bodies. And it didn't come till later, like, right, to get an actual diagnosis. So I don't even know, how long did you have symptoms before you actually pinpointed?
I would say it was just over 2 years. I was trying to figure this out on my own. And, you know, nothing against doctors. My professional
Right.
doctors did an amazing job doing what they could do. But what I've learned is the medical community is bogged down. They have a lot of work on their hands. So, you know, when they get done with work, they're not going home and reading these new thick manuals with all the most up-to-date information. So you have to be proactive for your own health and your own body to do research. I mean, it's a team effort. You can't just willy-nilly walk into the doctor and just say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. I mean, you have to be proactive and, hey, this is what I've been feeling, but hey, I've tried this, I've done this, I've worked on, you know, I think I'm a big proponent of holistic options. Which I know are, it's kind of counterintuitive in the medical field, but I mean, certain things like chiropractic care, acupuncture, massage therapy, I mean, those holistic measures are truthfully what have helped me the most with what I've been going through. So I think the
Yeah.
biggest takeaway that I would love to share is that it's a team effort. Your body is your body, and you have to have the wherewithal to research it and find out what's best for you, and help your doctor to help you.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like how you said that, because really and truly, you're living testimony that certain maybe unconventional methods worked right for you. So we don't always have to stay trapped in this box of this works. This is what we've always done. So, excuse me, fast forward. So you're carrying around this emotional baggage of what's wrong with my body. And you enter into 2017, August 27th. In fact, my birthday is the only reason I remember that. So you were in Houston for Hurricane Harvey on that day. And that's when your life, I hate to say, got more exciting, but it got crazy. And I can only imagine some of the sleep deprivation added to your immune deficiency as well, or just your body taking its toll on. Um, Man, when you got to Houston, Beaumont, and you start coming into town, and it's a grease fire in the entire metro area. What shocked you most about maybe that day, or even just that mission in general?
I think what shocked me the most is we really didn't know what to expect. Obviously, we knew that people were going to be in trouble and that we were going to be rescuing them, but in most typical hurricane fashion, they hit the coast and the power dissipates. The hurricane slowly goes away. Well, as you know, Hurricane Harvey just sat and sat and sat, and nobody, including the rescuers, expected that. So what I like to convey is the biggest thing that I remember is, even though we were being the rescuers and the first responders, we were also staying there, living there. We were sleeping on, you know, at one point I found a table or a couch and we had our wet flight suits still. I mean, we were in a rescue situation ourselves, and we put all that aside because that's what we do. And we put our personal needs on the back burner to save others. And I just remember flying around and just praying and being like, Lord, help me help these people. Give me the eyes to see the people that need rescuing. Give me the strength to get these people into the helicopter and to a safe landing zone. I mean, it was quite terrifying and overwhelming. And not to mention, we're flying in a new space that we're unfamiliar with. I mean, our training is very standard across the board, but we knew New Orleans. We could fly
Yeah.
where the hazards were in New Orleans, but as far as Houston was, we really didn't have that sort of, background of knowing where all that stuff was. So it really just took a team effort of being very vigilant, being bold in our, commands with the pilot and the flying, and just everything. It was overwhelming, but I just felt the calming peace of God with me throughout it all, which helped me.
Yeah. I mean, so what I hear you say is you guys weren't flying to Dallas at night to a five-star hotel in the creature comforts, right? You were in the junk with everybody and you're living this. So your empathy level obviously goes through the roof. You're just survival instincts have to take over, like your training, like all that. Everybody in the military knows, first responders know, you don't really think. Your training just kicks in, your adrenaline kicks in, and you go do the job, and then you can deal with yourself and how you decompress and just your exhaustion later, right? That we don't have time for that.
Absolutely.
So during that time, like, what surprised you most about yourself, like along those couple of days where you're just taxed day in and day out, hour in and hour out?
Honestly, I think what fed me for those 3, 4 days was pure adrenaline. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, it's hard to sleep and it's hard to think about yourself knowing that there's people that are standing in waist deep water, that there's people sitting on their roof waiting to be rescued. I mean, that's what kept me going personally. And I think I can speak for the rest of the people that were there is, we are trained to put ourselves last. We're trained, we're service to community, not service to self. So for me, it was pure adrenaline. And when I came home, the decompression honestly was something that I had never experienced before. I mean, I just wanted to sit in my quiet house. I didn't turn the TV on. I didn't want to talk on the phone. I didn't want to listen to music. I literally just wanted to be in peace and quiet because it was such, sensory overload out there that I just really wanted to, not hear or see anything. But, thinking back to it as well, the Coast Guard does such a great job at standardization. We had pilots and flight mechanics and rescue swimmers from all over the country come in there, and we hopped in a helicopter. Some of us didn't know each other, and we went out there and we crushed it. We nailed the job because we all were trained the same exact way. And that's, to me, the beauty of what unfolded there is we just did it seamlessly. Nobody got hurt, and we were able to execute the job and save lives.
Yeah. And you can, I mean, the rotations just swap in and out. And the beauty of the training and Coast Guard structure is that you can just fold that in and not miss a beat. And I thought it was cool that you got to see some of your old friends from Michigan that came in to help, right? And you got to fly with some of those folks. How many, not that you know a number, but I would imagine not just your crew, there's a ton of people doing what you're doing all throughout the city of Houston at that time, correct? And what people don't
Yes.
understand, or maybe they do, but I mean, you're flying around in the storm and power lines are everywhere. And it's not that you just kind of go over, see somebody, drop a basket, get them, take them to safety. Like there's some maneuvering, there's some like, we can't get close to this line. Like we can't drop it in this, like your needle in a haystack trying to find people. Man, did you, God, I'm just, it's crazy. But was there a moment in all that chaos? And I remember reading the book and parts of it where, you felt like in the moment where your body kind of lost toward the end, you kind of lost your ability to pull somebody in, but you said a prayer in that moment and just God gave you the strength. But aside from that moment, was there any moments that you were just like 100% sure God showed up? Like you just felt the presence overwhelming. Any encounters like that spiritually?
Yes. You know what? That's why I'm so bold in my faith. It's not because I believe in this imaginary God who has done something in my life that I haven't seen. No, I have literally watched him pull me out of trouble, harm's way. For one example, during the hurricanes, we had just rescued, I think, a dozen people. There was like a dozen people in our small little helicopter cabin, and we were on our way to a landing zone. And again, we have low visibility. We have hurricane force winds. I mean, it was terrifying. And we were just saying a little prayer, like, Lord, if it's my time to go, that's okay. But Lord, please, let's get these people to safety. I was just more concerned about our members or our, survivors that we just saved. And I happened to glance out the cabin window to the right, and it was almost like the clouds had parted and God had showed me a little window of visibility, and I saw a huge cross. And I'm sure now that you living in Houston area, you know exactly which huge cross I'm talking about. But there was a church, and the name is a miss at the moment, but that huge cross was just happened to be right there as I was praying. And I somehow went into my flight bag and I grabbed my phone real quick and I took a picture, because that was a moment where God came through. And it reminded me of Joshua 1:9, where it says, have I not commanded you? Do not be afraid. I'm here with you. And in that moment, I just felt all my fear leave me, because I knew that he was with me and our crew, and he was going to get everybody there safe.
I mean, wow. Like, I mean, we all need moments of confirmation. And I think we don't necessarily take notice of some of those. I think he's kind of feeding those to us regular, and we're just kind of distracted and going through our emotions and we don't catch it. But that one was hard to miss. Like, that was
Absolutely.
him just kind of stamping that moment in time for you, and letting you know, look, I got this. I got you.
Yes, sir.
I got these people. And you keep talking about putting others first and you guys being last. It's kind of interesting that behind me there's some last in line stuff, and that's the name of the show. So you're trained in the military. I would assume all branches are trained, first responders are trained to put others first. Like, you guys are last, and that's a biblical out of Mark 9:35. It talks about he who wants to be first will be last, and the last will be first. So, man, I think it's awesome that all the military can all sort of agree on that one thing, and you were living it, man. So, dealing obviously with that neuromuscular disease, and you're the emotional effects you mentioned after you kind of unwound yourself emotionally and decompressed. When did you sort of come to terms with this is PTSD, or did you get a actual diagnosis, or is that just something you had to get to on your own and embrace and deal with? And talk to the listeners about that.
Absolutely. So, for me, you hit the nail on the head. We always put ourselves last in line, as far as the military and serving others. But what I learned throughout this whole experience is, in the real world, the real bravery comes from putting yourself first at times,
Yeah.
because it's honestly the hardest thing for some people to do. And I was having nightmares. I was very reclusive. I mean, I'm a very outgoing person. I love hanging out and being around my friends. And I found myself, avoiding going out. I just wanted to be alone, drink alone. I was having nightmares. And if I'm being 100% honest with you, I was nervous to say anything, because I didn't want to be labeled as, oh, she's just a sensitive female. That's truthfully what first came to mind, is I didn't want to be looked at as weak. And then the second thing was, I didn't want my career to end. I knew that with the autoimmune thing and the PTSD, it was probably going to happen. But, we're kind of taught in aviation, to be strong and to get over it, because any little thing will take away your flying status.
Yeah.
But the overall goal that I found out for myself was, if I wanted to be the best person to serve others, whether it be my family, my friends, my significant other, my coworkers, I had to take care of myself first, because when I wasn't okay and I was dealing with all this stuff, I wasn't being the best person to the people that I loved.
Right.
And so I did get a clinical diagnosis. I started going to counseling, which really helped me. I never thought I needed it, but clearly I did. It was just nice to offload all that internal stuff onto a stranger without any judgments and confidentiality, of course. And then I started talking to people that I flew with, and people that were out there during the hurricane, and they were like, yeah, I'm having nightmares too. And not all
Mm.
of them, but some of them were dealing with the same thing that I was, and nobody was talking about it. And I was like,
Wow.
well, we need to fix this. We need to be able to, take care of ourselves so that we can take care of other people. So I just learned the biggest bravery sometimes it comes from that vulnerability of saying, hey, you know what, I need help.
Yeah. A lot of people needed to hear that. I mean, I know, I would imagine that you're on this trail of advocacy for people in similar situations and speaking at places, because you do speaking engagements, and I would imagine you're out to try to help those that are kind of following you along that path, or ones that you were alongside that are maybe struggling, that haven't quite come to terms with certain things. You said something there about when you kind of just isolated during the process, and I want to get a little personal for the audience, because I think this could meet somebody where they are. Um, you got isolated. You come from a family of potential. You might be susceptible to some addictive traits and personality. I know you mentioned your relationship with your mom throughout the book a little bit, and some of her struggles, and you guys, reconciled and did some much needed communication along the process. Did you ever worry, or did that ever trigger in your head that you were in a susceptible state from a self-medication standpoint?
Absolutely. Honestly, it's very easy to not think there's a problem because drinking alcohol is celebrated. I mean, hey, you want to go to the bar and have a beer? Hey, you want to come over and drink some wine? I mean, there's really not the negative connotation with it that could eventually snowball into a problem. But again, for me, I just had to recognize, like you said, hey, this is something that could be genetic, that I have to be very careful with not allowing that to be a crutch. And that was hard to come around to sometimes, because I mean, I enjoy my wine, and I still do to this day, but I've learned how to be, just understanding the power behind it, responsible with it. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, let's face it, I come from a long line on that side, on a certain side of my family, that we're sitting ducks. Like, if we get ourselves into an environment emotionally or just secluded and start medicating, we could become that. Like, it's very easy for folks, not that it couldn't be happening to anybody, but when you have it in your bloodline, it is hereditary potentially. So, I mean, it's pretty responsible and mature. Like, I don't know that a lot of people get to a point within themselves, like you say you did, where you're like, okay, there's some triggers here that it's getting a little too frequent, and I see that this could go down a path. What advice, like, not everybody's as self-aware, right? And to be that responsible, what do you say to those people on certain triggers and signs that could get them to be like, uh-oh, let's take this to somebody?
Yeah, I would say my biggest piece of advice, again, I mean, I may be repeating myself a little bit here, but think about those people that love you. That's innately what kept me going. Is there were so many people that cared about me that I was brushing off, that I wasn't being there for, because of my internal struggles. So when it started, I mean, there's a definition for alcoholism, I believe, out there. It was something along the lines of, if it starts to affect your personal relationships, starts to affect your job, starts to affect your finances, if you choosing alcohol starts to affect any realm of your life, it's considered a problem. And what I've learned is the term alcoholism, or having a problem with that, doesn't just go away when you quit drinking, if that's what you decide. It's a constant disease, if you will. I mean, it's something that you have to really focus on, that doesn't become a crutch. And a God in my life, and praying and seeing him move and give me strength. And I feel like it would almost be a disservice not to share that. I don't want to ever be that preachy kind of person, but quite
Right.
frankly, it's for me, and I see him in my life, and I just try to share that to everybody that I encounter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got to make it about something bigger than us, and we have to get to a place. And like, you always hear the rock bottom cliche, but you got to get to a place where you're at the end of yourself almost, or you realize that there's somebody bigger that can help you. And you don't have to do it alone. Like, he's a father, just like it's like I'm a parent. I don't want my kids to feel like they got to go through life all by themselves, and neither does he. So yeah, I mean, we got to have that anchor, and we got to go to him on a regular basis. But and I don't think that's preachy at all. So take that, audience, if you don't like that. No. Um, so I would say, so your mom and you guys worked things out, right? Reconciled. Um, did you, did you have some heroes along the way? Like, did you have some people in your life that you pulled leadership qualities from, resilience from, just anybody that you kind of held in that higher regard along the way that kind of, besides your faith, kind of were your anchors?
I'd have to say, and I know this probably sounds a little odd, but I gained a lot throughout my personal and professional life from those leaders who weren't the best, from those people in my life that set a high standard for me that, kind of made me mad. If I was slacking off, these people put me in check. And honestly, I feel like I gained so much from them. I mean, of course, the great leaders that I had, I had so many amazing chiefs and so many amazing friends in the military and outside, but I gained so much wisdom and strength from the people that maybe weren't the best leaders, because it taught me how I didn't want to lead people. And also it taught me to have a high standard for myself. And so, putting that into a personal perspective, I was able to share that with people in my life, what I have gone through. And that's exactly why I'm going through and sharing my story with people, is that, on some sort of level, my story will relate to somebody and to help somebody.
That was well said. Man, I got to know, you get this phone call and you tried to ignore the phone call. You did. It was an unknown number. We've all done this, but you get these solicitations, right? You ignored it twice, maybe, if I remember right. So when you answered it finally, tell the audience who was calling.
So I was on the hangar deck that day working, and I had my phone on silent and it kept vibrating, and I would pull it out and it was an unknown number. I would ignore it, pull it out again, ignore it. Finally, on the third try, I thought, okay, I'm annoyed. I need this person to stop calling. So I answered it, and I kind of was a little bratty. I was like, hello. And on the other line was this like super friendly, cheerful voice saying, hi, this is so-and-so from the White House. I'm cordially inviting you to President Trump's State of the Union. Or she said, I'm calling on behalf of President Trump to invite you to be his honored guest at the 2018 State of the Union. And my first reaction was to look around on the hangar deck and like, who is playing a prank on me? What is happening?
You're like, Katie, I don't have time for this. Click.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, sure enough, I got the invitation that day, and it was honestly the biggest honor. I think it took me a solid minute to respond because my jaw had dropped so far, because I was like, what? So yeah.
Wow. Well, take us through that. I'm not going to leave it right there. We got to hear more about this. So you go, and it's his first State of the Union address, right? I've never played in like a Super Bowl championship, a Super Bowl game or a World Series Game 7 or anything like that. But being at that event had to be right up there. So take us through some of the process, like just being in that room, and then kind of what he, a little bit about what he said and how you felt in that moment, and just the crazy honor and humility that must have felt.
That's exactly what it was. It was such an honor, and I was so humbled to be there and to represent not only what me and my crews did, but what all of the Coast Guard did out there and first responders. So basically what happened was I got the call and I got the invitation, but it was very vague. I had no idea that I was going to be sitting front and center. I had no idea that I was even in his speech. I thought I was going to be sitting back row peanut gallery somewhere, just like as a guest, like, oh, this is awesome.
Which is still pretty cool, right? Which is still
right,
pretty cool.
Absolutely, 100%. But we got there. We got a full tour of the entire White House. We got to see, the history of different pieces of furniture in different rooms where different presidents spoke. And it was an honor. We even got to go down to the presidential bowling alley and bowl for a little bit, which was awesome. So we kind of did that. And then at the very end of the day, I think it was around 8 or 9 p.m. is when we actually went to the Capitol building, and we got to ride in Melania's motorcade, which was super cool. All the streets were shut down, and it was very amazing. And then I think it wasn't until this moment that I realized, wait, am I a part of this? And like, what's happening? Because they took all of our cell phones, and then they showed me where I was sitting, which was like front row on the top gallery next to Second Lady Karen Pence. And I was like, wow. And then she leaned over to me and was like, are you excited that you're in the speech? And I was like, what? And she was like, well, and then I said, okay, well, if he talks about me, what do I do? Do I stand up? Do I sit down? And she goes, the proper protocol is to stay seated because people give you the standing ovation or whatever. So at that point, my nerves kicked in, and I didn't know at what point he would talk about me, but sure enough, within the first 5 minutes of his speech, he spoke about me, and I got a standing ovation. And I just remember in that moment, just thanking God so much, just like everybody's clapping. And I just sort of just gave it all to God again and just said, thank you, God, for this moment, because I had known right then and there that he had given me this platform.
Yeah.
This little sliver of, my moment of fame, if you will.
Yeah.
And he was going to know that I was going to use that for his glory, which I've been trying to do ever since. So it's just kind of amazing how it all unfolded. And, it was just the biggest honor of my life, of course.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. And I'm glad you asked that question to the second lady, because had you not, if you were me, when they stood up and started and you heard you're just up and you're just like, yeah, you're like telling the crowd to, get louder and doing the stupid stuff that I would have done. So I'm glad you asked that.
I would have done that too.
Yeah. No, that's great. What a moment. I mean, I don't know if you have that, like a video, somewhere that you can keep and look at occasionally, but no, I think that's important to know that you were aware enough to stay grounded enough to know that God gave that to you. And then to know that it's your duty now to go and use that platform, like you said, to glorify him and just empower other people with your story. And that's what you're doing. So as we close up shop a little bit here, so what's next for you? What's next down the road? And then help the audience kind of track you down to get some of your resources and maybe even book you for a speaking event.
Sure thing. So right now, the future is unknown. Like the world is my oyster kind of feel for right now. I did write my book, The Hurricane Within. I'm actually working slowly on a second edition where I talk a lot about updates and things that have happened since I medically retired. But for now, my primary job is I go around and I get hired to do various speaking engagements, which is so fulfilling to me because every time I go and speak, I feel like I always leave with something more than even I gave my audience. It's just a beautiful thing to share my personal testimony.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been doing that. I just made my new website is ashleeleppert.com, where people can go on there and order an autographed copy of a book or message me to inquire about different speaking engagements. I've traveled all over the country. I have a busy next few months traveling and speaking different places. So I'm just trying to focus on inspiring as many people as I can. I look around at the world and man, boy, do we need some positivity and inspiration nowadays. And that's all that I try to do. And of course, plant seeds of faith along the way.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I mean, audience, on behalf of the audience, I want to thank you for being here and through your crazy morning that you've had. I appreciate you making time for us and coming off a speaking engagement last night. So I know you probably need a little rest. So thank you for making time for the audience. It's been a blessing, hearing your journey, hearing just some of your resilience alone is inspiring. And I know somebody got better today. In fact, I know you met somebody right where they are, if they're dealing with any sort of post, military trauma of any kind, emotionally, any kind of addiction potential. Like, I thank you for pouring into those people. And audience, she has been Ashlee Leppert. We have been last in line.